I just told her, I said, listen, this is who I am. I told her the story. I told her my financial situation. I told her that I'm not asking her to be the help that I'm seeking. I'm asking her to just see me for who I am and be there for, the ride. Wasn't asking her to be the solution.
Yeah.
Now she's my best friend.
All right, everybody. John Henry from the Good Hustle Podcast, episode 6,432. Just kidding. We're probably around 50. But I am extremely blessed to have a great guest here today. We have Kris Quintana. He is a guy that I met a little over a year ago.
Yep.
What I knew about him 3 months ago and what I know about you today are two different things. What I knew was he was a school teacher and he was selling real estate part-time, and then he quit being a school teacher and started selling real estate full-time, and then he got involved with some other things, and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. We work in the same office. We do a lot of the same types of things. But getting to know you and understand you and your personality and seeing some similarities that we do have, dark humor, hilariousness, whatever you want to call it, I wanted to know a little bit more about your story. So we had lunch a couple months ago and just kind of got to really talk about some things that you've struggled with, which is a lot of things that, different backstory, but same things that I've struggled with. Because when we do talk about mental health, which this is a big conversation we're going to have today, the roots of mental health can be the same type of thing. What we do with them are different. So for me, my mental health issues went from anxiety, depression to addiction, drugs, alcohol, suicidal tendencies, things like that. But they were rooted the same way yours might be rooted, but coming from a different place. So first off, I want to say just thanks for coming on the show, and to let everybody know, this is something Kris has been dealing with for most of your life, especially since he is, which he'll get into, some military stuff. But there's some key dates in here, like 2017, which is a year that's really key. So that's 8 years ago. And this, I can tell you, is the first time you're sharing your story, like out loud, publicly. And this is going to be some real emotional healing for you. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to be tough on you. And the next couple of days might be tough on you. Because I can tell you the first time I shared my story, I went into a small depression for a couple of days, because this is an emotional roller coaster to relive the stuff that we've done. But is it healing? Listen to me out there. If you've not had a chance to share your story or your pain, it's healing. So Kris, I'd love for you to kind of give us a little bit of your background, where you're from, and kind of work us through, what happened to you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, John. This is, like you said, the first time that I am telling my story publicly. I've told people here and there privately. Some of my family know exactly what I went through. Some of them don't, and this will probably be the first time that they hear about it. But I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here because what I would like to do is to tell my story. One, like you said, for healing, but two, because I want to be able to help others that have been in my shoes. And, if there is something that they get out of this, or if they're struggling right now and they need to reach out to someone, like, that's my ultimate goal.
Yeah, and I think what you said, it's the healing. There's no selfishness when we share our stories. There's not. And I think that that's what you're bringing to the table today. So go ahead, man.
Yeah. So prior to, we'll go backwards, prior to 2017, which is a pivotal point in the story, growing up, I kind of grew up very isolated. I initially, like, my parents were together. I had my younger sister. I have 4 sisters in total. One of them is full blood though. And so grew up with her. There were some many growing pains, like, growing up, because me and my mother don't see eye to eye. We just have very different opinions on how people should live their life. And so I kind of grew up the black sheep, still am kind of the black sheep of the family. And so, dealing with that and then dealing with, kind of a lot of rejection. I've been in therapy now since I think seventh grade. So what's seventh grade? That's like 13.
12, 13, yeah.
So 25 years now I've been going to therapy. So I'm not going to say it doesn't help, because it only works if you would allow it to work. And so I don't think at that age I was ready for it to work. And so I had a lot of anger issues, a lot of depression, and then it just built up. And then, my parents divorced. My dad went to Miami. I followed him to Miami, and I completely screwed up when I was in high school. So much so that I had to, they said that I was going to have to repeat my senior year of high school. I said no. So I went and got my GED and then signed up for the Coast Guard within 30 days. Got into the Coast Guard. It was great. It was amazing.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
So going from all the chaos of your childhood,
Mm-hmm.
like was part of, because the first thing I think of is like the stability.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go from chaos and then you're thrown into the Coast Guard, which was a choice you made. Do you think subconsciously you were just looking for stability?
Probably. I will say that when I was done, with school, I knew that I didn't want to go into college because I was not prepared to do that all over again right away. And it would have probably been a waste of thousands of dollars. So like at that point I was looking for something. I just don't know what it was.
Yeah. Well, that's cool, because I love how you just jumped right in. So go ahead, tell me about that.
Tell you
This Coast Guard, like you.
Yeah, the Coast Guard. So I joined the Coast Guard. It was great. When I first got in, I was assigned to a cutter out of Cape Canaveral, Florida, the Vigilant 617. It was great times. It showed me a lot of things, but I didn't even know like how to be an adult. I didn't know how to pay bills. I didn't know how to manage money. Growing up in our family and culturally, in our area, like financial literacy is not something that is taught, nor is it passed down. So
Yeah, I get that.
So like when I first got into the Coast Guard, I mean, my payday, I was rich. The day after payday, I was poor.
Yeah.
And then I started learning like banking, like ins and outs. So you could have $1 in your bank account and you could withdraw money up to what a certain limit. Each bank was different. And so there have been times where I've had negative $700 in my bank account, but I had $700 in cash in my hand. And then when I got paid, it would take me to like zero. Well, not zero. It would probably take me like $100, $200, and then I'd do it all over again. It was just a cycle that I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
So I didn't know how to be an adult. I didn't know how to be responsible. I had a quasi parent essentially, because the military makes sure that you are doing this at this time, and when they tell you to do it, how they do it, and how they want you to do it. And so that was great for me. It gave me boundaries, but it felt like Pong. So like I'm bouncing from one side to the other, but it's within a controlled environment. During the Coast Guard, there were many times where, I dealt with situations that, not your everyday people deal with. So like I've picked dead people out of the water. I've dealt with some very contentious and very real life and death situations. In my 4 years, I got injured and then I had to get out. So, on the outside, if you looked at me in the Coast Guard, if you looked at all of my pictures and my accolades and awards, it looks like success. It looks like stability. It looks like someone who has their stuff together. A lot of military members can, relate to this, is that you don't have time to really think. And so everything gets suppressed. So you're not dealing with any of those emotions, especially like a lot of my friends who were over in Iraq and Afghanistan, they're going through, very contentious firefights on a daily basis, and they have no time to really think about what they just went through. It's when you get out that you have all the time in the world, and that's when things become a little dangerous.
Can I ask you a question about that? So, same thing is, and I see this a lot with especially the military. So, you're structured, you're in there, you're structured, you're in there, you're structured, you're in there. You're taught how to do what they teach you to do. You're taught a lot of wonderful skills. There's a lot of amazing benefits with the military. But do you see this even with people that you know or that you were, that you were stationed with, things like that, where they get out and they're still not understanding just simple things of being an adult, paying a bill, doing this, doing that. So like it almost feels like there should be this like 30-day class after you get out just to say, hey, listen, now here's how you have to pay your bill, set up bank accounts, things like that. Like, because I went to rehab, you were, and through 12-step programs, you're taught a bunch of tools. Rehab taught you a lot of tools on who you are. Then you go through some maybe 12-step programs, and I was taught about tools on how to help myself. Now, I'm never going to be healed as an alcoholic or an addict. I'm always going to be an alcoholic and an addict, just non-practicing. But I feel like I've been given a bag of tools through community-based healing as opposed to just therapy, just medication, because I can go to therapy once a week and take medication for my entire life. But if I'm not involved with people that are like me, like-minded, been through what I've been through, similar situations, I don't know if I'll ever heal. Do you ever think about like how that can affect?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because the military does have a program called TAPS.
TAPS, yes.
It helps you transition.
Okay.
Where I think that it falls through the cracks is that not everyone participates in TAPS. I wasn't even invited to participate in TAPS when I got out. And so I never went. So I don't know exactly what happens and what it looks like. I know what people say that it includes. It's supposed to help you transition from getting out of the military and into the civilian world. But if you've never had it, it's a very cold turkey moment.
Yeah.
So they have a structure. I don't know how deep it goes or, how effective it is. Because like I said, I wasn't even invited to do TAPS when I got out.
Yeah. So you leave Coast Guard. How long are you in? How many years?
I did 4 years.
Yep.
I would have made it a career. I would have gone the distance, but between, my mental health issues, my distrust and my clashing with leadership and authority, and then, my injuries, like I couldn't do it past that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when it came to it, so you leave, you're experiencing the Coast Guard, you're out, you have trauma, leadership conflict, physical injuries. So post like Coast Guard life, you're now stuck in a situation where what's going on? Like you don't have a home.
Yeah. So when I got out, at the time that I got out, I was dating a young woman that I met locally when I moved into the area. Her grandparents had unfortunately at that time passed away, like almost simultaneously. And they had a house in Salisbury, Maryland. I actually just took my wife past the house a few weekends ago when we were down visiting friends to show her like where I was after the Coast Guard. It's all boarded up now. So the house had no running water. It didn't have electricity. It was, pest infested, mice, insects, things like that. The vegetation was overgrown over the house, and that's kind of where I lived for 4 months, because once I got out of the military and when I finally got approved and school started for me for college, there was about like a 4-month time period where I didn't have any real income coming in. I didn't have any like supports or anything like that. And I still hadn't been enrolled in the VA healthcare system yet.
So you go from stability to that.
Yeah.
That's shocking to me.
Yeah, that's probably outside of, 2017, that's probably my rock bottom
The catalyst almost.
the absolute catalyst of how things started to trend upward. But I had to hit that in order to go upward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm living in this house. In order, I was getting 5-gallon buckets from my my girlfriend's parents' home because she was living with her parents. Her dad didn't like me for a number of reasons, and so there was definitely no staying with them. I wasn't going to go live with my parents again, and so I used to take these 5-gallon buckets, heat up the water, and that's how I would take hot showers. I would also use it in the toilet.
Yeah, I was gonna say flush the toilet.
Flush the toilet, and then for brushing my teeth, go heat up the water, and then I would eat out a lot because there's just no cooking at home unless I'm going to cook on a fire. And it was a little sketch to cook on a fire, and because the vegetation was so grown that like one little spark, and I felt like the whole house would catch. So at this time, my occupation, I became a security guard, a bouncer for a local bar in Salisbury. And
I thought they hired big guys for that. I'm just kidding.
This is true.
They do. You're a big guy. It's
well,
good.
I mean, but at the time, like I was a lot smaller. I was more lean than I am now. At my heaviest, I've been 340 pounds.
No doubt.
Yeah. I'm down 80 pounds from my heaviest.
Dude, from the time I met you to today, which is about, I would say almost 2 years.
2 years.
Dude, you look completely different.
Yeah.
And I also want to talk about real quick, because when people don't understand is that healthiness of your body, like, and I've said this on the show numerous times, like your stomach is your second brain.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you're feeding it correctly, like you're a different person than I met 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You really are. Like just your presence as a person has gone from like, and I don't mean, and I'm not trying to talk negatively, but almost like I could feel a little bit of anger. I could feel a little bit of like just not, you didn't have this glow, but I see you today in the office, and I even talked to Taylor about this. Like she's like, he's just like this warm teddy bear. Just like when he smiles, it's like the brightest smile in the world. And that's something I didn't see 2 years ago with you.
I mean, that's something a lot of people don't see because the anger and the depression and aggression are still in there, and it's in a capsule.
Yeah.
But it comes out. My fuse is longer, but there's still a fuse.
Oh, yeah, I got fuses. Yeah, they're coming from everywhere, so I get it. Real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to Deer Valley Land Transfer. When buying your home in the state of Pennsylvania or anywhere in the country, it's important to have title insurance to make sure there are no liens against the property or anything that may not be known, whether it's about the deed, size of the property, anything that you can find out that could be negative or harmful for you in the future. They protect you. This is an insurance that is mandated if you're getting a mortgage, and if you're paying cash, you should still do it anyway. Deer Valley Land Transfer.
Yeah, so I became a security guard. That was one of the worst decisions that I made during that time because I wasn't medicated. I was undiagnosed. I was full of anger, and it was putting me in conflict situations where it was almost inviting to let the aggression
You wanted
out.
it to happen.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Yep.
I get it.
So
you're down there in Salisbury. When did you move up to this area?
I moved up here in 2016.
Okay.
For a long time, and the story of my life is that I had conflicts with my own family because I was angry, I was depressed, I was manipulative, I lied so much. I hid a lot of things, and so like my aunt and I didn't have the greatest relationship for a long time. And we rekindled. I rekindled with my cousins that I grew up with, and so 2016, she allowed me to come up, and I lived with her for a little bit until I got on my own.
And this is Colonial Park area?
So
outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, by the way.
So when I moved out of her place, I lived in Colonial Park. She lives in Lewisberry right now.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Yep.
So, yeah, I moved in with her. She kind of got me somewhat stable, but I wasn't telling her everything. So, of course, you can only do so much for someone if you're not telling them everything. And so I had another breaking point where I had like negative $900 on my bank account. I had no money. I didn't have a job at the time. And like I started breaking down, to my aunt. And so she kind of pushed me to get a job, get my finances in order so I could move out on my own. And then that's when I found a place in Colonial Park. It was like a 1-bedroom studio behind like a house.
Yeah. Above a garage, or was it?
No, completely separate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, it is.
So once again, you're back in isolation though.
Yeah, very much so.
Which
Now,
is-
the one thing I do have this whole time, since 2015, I have my Roddy, Ellie. So
Okay, gotcha.
Ellie, I got Ellie during like a difficult time when I was, working in education in Salisbury. And one of my colleagues there was like, "Hey, why don't you come with me? I'm about to pick up my Rottweiler today." And so I was like, "Sure." They had 12 puppies. They were all claimed. And she said, I was actually trying to give, the breeder said, I was trying to give this one Roddy to the VA, but there's a lot of red tape. And she's a Rottweiler and all this stuff. And I feel like my colleague set this up. So she's like, if you want the Roddy, like, she's available for you for free, no charge. And I had said it was like a week before she could be released. And so I said no each day. I was like, I can't take this dog. I can't take this dog. I can't. And then it was the day that they went to go pick up theirs, and they were like, "Hey, you want to come get yours?" And I was like, Yes, I'm gonna go pick her up. And so I've had Ellie since Memorial Day of 2025.
Oh, so it's 10 years.
It's 10 years.
Yesterday was Memorial Day.
hmm
That's amazing.
Her birthday's May 30th, or not May, March 31st.
Yeah, because so when I got sober, I was like 2 years in, really in a low spot still though, because I hadn't really worked the programs and I hadn't done a lot of things. Hadn't seen a doctor, hadn't started therapy, and I got a cat named Annie, and Annie's 14 now as of May 1st, and she's like, no, of course I have 2 cats, 2 dogs, but I mean, like, she sleeps with me every night. Like, I got my dog like this and my cat like this last night. Like,
Heaven.
it is heaven. It is. So I want to talk to you about, so you're now in Colonial Park, you're in this 1-bedroom, you're with Ellie, but at the same time, like, you don't have, I don't know, do you have the community yet where you need, like, for me, like with healing, and healing is really, really important in community. And by community, I'm not saying like your neighbors, maybe, but people that are like-minded, like we said earlier. So you're in this apartment alone with a dog, but still somewhat isolated.
Pretty much completely isolated. Like, I would go and visit my aunt and my cousins, and we would go hang out on weekends and things like that. And we used to have a tradition. Life has gotten busy since then, but we every Saturday we would get together. We played dominoes until like 2:00 in the morning, listening to music, drinking, having a good time. It was great. But that's one day a week, maybe 2 days a week, for the weekend, and complete isolation. And I was working for a mental health facility at the time, and then I kind of had like a breakdown. It wasn't an uncalled for breakdown. It's just the presentation that I gave was very aggressive and very loud and very in your face, and they didn't know how to deal with that. Everything that I said was very much a concern, a serious concern for the program, and they eventually closed that program. But I was jobless, unemployed again, and didn't have any real money coming in. And so there I was, alone, no money, just Ellie. And then
Spiraling
every day for a long time. Let's see, I moved out on my own in February of 17. And, this episode happened in September of 17.
Can we talk about it?
Yeah. So I'm in my bedroom, nothing's on. There's no electronics. There's no TV. I'm not listening to any music. It was actually a sunny day, so it wasn't like really super gloomy or depressing outside. And I had Ellie in front of me. She was just sleeping. And one thing that has always been a constant, especially since I got out of the military, is racing thoughts. And so it's all about trying to control it now, but
Oh, yeah.
it's very, very difficult for anyone who's ever tried. And I just started spiraling, and I had thoughts and feelings that like my situation wasn't going to get any better, that the people around me would be better off if I wasn't here. Um, there was no want to go past that day, and there was no will, no motivation, nothing. And you just feel numb. Um, you feel unloved. You know, there's a lot of feelings that you feel that you start to feel like it's uncontrollable. And, you know, I'm sitting there looking at Ellie. She seems peaceful and content. And in my mind, it's absolutely chaos, and like it's extremely loud and not controllable. And so I had a 45 caliber pistol. I grabbed it. It was loaded. I had one in the chamber, and I started looking at it, and it started to look like my best friend, because it was going to help me solve all the problems that I was having right then and there. And I remember thinking, well, someone's got to take care of Ellie. I need to reach out to my aunt and my cousin. And so I did. And I told them, hey, listen, like, I don't want to be here anymore. You know, it's not fun. Life hasn't really been great lately. And I'm just ready to go. And so my aunt called me, my cousin started texting me, and they ended up coming to my place in Colonial Park, both of them. And then we had a conversation about what next steps look like.
So this immediate response from family, life-saving. And it's all because the one thing that you have to understand that I love, even when people like yourself and myself who have mental illness issues, we still care about others, right? We still do care about ourselves. We just don't know how to. But your care for just a simple pet, which, by the way, is some of the deepest love you'll ever feel. Pets open up pathways in your brain that humans cannot, which is kind of crazy to hear. Like there's, I don't know, it's like 137 pathways of love for humans to human love. And like for pets, it's over 300. So like the fact that, God's plan is, hey, you're going to get this dog. You're going to care so much about this dog. When you do try to take your own life, your care for this dog is going to have you reach out to somebody. Like that's a plan. Like that's all set up, and have that family reach right out to you and come directly to your house and, be able to sit down and talk to you. What was that conversation like, and how did they get you to your next level, which obviously you did some inpatient?
Yeah. That's kind of how the conversation went. My aunt is in the medical field. My cousin is in the social work field. So there were, conversations about what next steps look like, how to get past the point that, here I am ready to take my life. So during this time, I had sold my pistol, so that way there wasn't that temptation. I called the VA, and then I went to the ER, and at the ER, they asked if that's what I wanted to do, was voluntarily go into inpatient. It's not every day someone walks in and says that, they want you to lock them up for a little bit so they can get better. That's, for me, that was probably one of the the stronger moments during this time.
That's what people don't understand. Like when I went to rehab and said, I need help, and I literally walked in with a white flag, it was the strongest moment of my life.
But it doesn't feel that way.
No, you think you look the weakest at that time, but you're not. That is strength. And that's what people don't understand, or people forget, is that they think they look like, oh, man, like you look weak, you look less than because you need help and you're asking for it. That's one of the strongest things you can do. If you to walk in there, and this is in Lebanon, right?
Yeah,
Lebanon, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, the Lebanon hospital.
And say, I went in.
Yep. And he asked me like 3 times if I was sure. It almost felt like he was trying to talk me out of it. And I was like, I'm pretty sure. Like I'm not here, you know, to play patient. I'm here because I do need the help. You know, that had been the first time ever in my life that I've ever taken a weapon and ever thought about taking my life. So
Yeah.
I've had ideation before, and I've had thoughts. I've never had a plan, and I've never even tried to attempt. It's just, you know, it got so scary that I knew that I needed to do something. So I went to Lebanon. The doctor admitted me, and I'm not gonna say it was like jail, because jail is definitely, you know, worse than where I was at. It's like hybrid. It's got jail-like structure with hospital
Care.
Yeah. So I mean, that's once they closed the door, because that was a heavy door that they closed behind me.
Oh, yeah.
You knew that you weren't getting out for a while.
Yeah, and there's one thing that you wrote down that I read it, and this is something that's so true, is that, you know, you committed yourself to therapy and behavioral health appointments, things like that, which is of the utmost importance. But the one thing is, sorry,
It's okay.
no overnight healing.
No.
Let me get the mic closer. Sorry. There's no overnight healing. So you're walking in those woods for, let's say, 10, 15 years. You're not getting out in a day.
No, I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day. You get, I think what inpatient does for those who are curious, or, you know, who might need it, or just don't know what it's like. It's a very temporary fix to immediate problems, and not even problems, immediate, you know, issues that you need to put the fires out quickly just to get to some stability. And so I was in there for a little over a week. In that week's time, we started med management. We started group therapy, individual therapy, just to give me the tools to be able to take that and go to my my primary care and my behavioral health specialist after getting out of inpatient. And it's taken, that was in 17, and we're in 2025, and it's still not perfect.
No, it's progress, not perfection.
Exactly. Even baby steps are steps forward. And that's what, you know, I had to learn through therapy, is that you can't rush the process. And I tried to rush it many times, and I failed many times. Even with, you know, my marriage, and, you know, my family relationships. You know, I met my wife a year after this whole situation happened, not really looking for her. But I remember, like, it was like our first week of dating. I just told her, I said, listen,
This is who I am.
this is who I am. It is very, very raw. And
So you basically told her the story.
I told her the story. I told her my financial situation. I told her that, you know, I'm not asking her to be the help that I'm seeking. I'm asking her to, you know, just see me for who I am and be there for, you know, the ride. I'm not asking, wasn't asking her to be the solution.
Yeah.
And now she's my best friend.
Yeah, and she stayed, which is always cool. And I think that honesty, that transparency is a really great quality to have. And I think somebody that you're dating or whatever, if they really that's somebody you want. If somebody you can be transparent to and tell them who you really are, and they're gonna be like, yeah, I'm okay with that. Like, I can grow with you. I think that's huge. So, I mean, we all talk about this, like mental health is always going to be a daily battle. I mean, I can tell you there's days where I don't want to get out of bed till noon. There's times when I just want to curl into a ball and I don't wake up. There's times where I skip crucial conversations because I just can't mentally handle it. And I'm almost 17 years sober. Like, it's a daily battle. So you want to talk about some of those that you have, like triggers, things like that. Like, you still deal with that stuff too.
Yeah. So you don't get rid of everything. You manage it. So on a daily basis, some days are really great. I can get up, I can get myself dressed. I'm extremely intrinsically motivated, ready to go handle the day. And then there are some days where I wake up and I know that it's not going to be a great day. I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to do anything for myself. Don't even want to shower, brush my teeth, take care of my dogs. And my dogs mean the absolute world to me. And I'll text my wife. I'm like, hey, it's not a good day. And so depending on how bad the day is, she'll take a minute to, give me a phone call, text conversation, or if it's bad enough, like there have been times where she's taken off of work and she's come home and, she's just made sure that I have everything that I need. It's challenging. Triggers can be a lot of things. Music, there are some times where the music that I'm listening to triggers, memories, situations, movies, same way. And just events. This past weekend.
It's a big weekend for John.
Yeah.
Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah. I mean, well, this for me, it wasn't. This past weekend is not necessarily a trigger for me. It was more. So we live close to the Susquehanna River, essentially directly across the river from the airport, and this is the first time that the Blue Angels have been in the Susquehanna Valley. I think it's 38 years now.
Yeah, that was amazing. I watched them fly all over the place.
Yeah, I've got video. It's been great. But then, you realize certain things kind of trigger you. So like they're military planes. It's a military demonstration. And what do you start thinking about? Like I reflect on my short career, things that happened to me. And, I was just standing there watching them as they're doing their diamond pattern and then splitting up. And I'm just like tearing up because, I miss the camaraderie. I miss being able to do those types of things with, the boats that we worked on. It does come with a lot of emotions, and there are triggers that are going to happen all the time. And sometimes you're not going to even know that they're coming on.
No. Oh, you can't hide from all of them. Like I try to. Like Memorial Day weekend for me was like the kickoff weekend of the party.
Yeah.
Like this was the kickoff of the party season. And somebody said to me the other day, like, well, when did party season end? I was like, the week before. It's a year-long party. But this was kickoff weekend. Like that's how I looked at it. It was like this was the biggest weekend. So this weekend used to be such a trigger for me, especially early in sobriety. I was like, dude, I remember I got married Memorial Day weekend when I was in the middle of my addiction, and then realized the next year that I had to celebrate my anniversary on my kickoff weekend. I was pissed at myself. Like, how selfish is that? Like, just ridiculousness. These are the thoughts that I had because you only care about one thing, and that was myself. I only cared about one thing, that was myself. But it's been fun to watch. Like you said earlier, we were talking about like your personal growth, though. Like over the last few months. Like even just like your health, like you're focusing on health, and how much weight have you lost?
So total, because I just had my voice little tweaked because I just had a tonsillectomy on April 30th. So between that and the amount that I lost prior to that, I'm at 80 pounds loss from my heaviest weight.
How much does your Roddy weigh?
Um, my male Roddy weighs around 140. My female about 116, and then
It's insane.
I have a blue healer that's about 76 pounds.
Okay, so you lost a blue healer.
I've lost a blue healer.
But that's the other thing. Like even through all this, there's a lot of not just the personal and health achievements, like being married at a great marriage, which I'm sure there's ups and downs with. They all have them. But she's your best friend, your support, your ride or die. But you also have like some professional acclimates that are pretty awesome, like Precision Leverage Solutions, which is a company that does like TC work as transaction coordinator, helping people with their database, things like that through real estate. But you're a co-owner of that, like vice president of which school board?
Northeastern.
Yeah,
School
Northeastern,
District.
which is amazing, which is, York Haven. Like these are acclimates. Like people look at that and they say, okay, military guy, that makes sense. That makes sense. A lot of people will never know the in-between, and that's okay. Not everybody needs to know everything about our lives. But that was some of the ways that I used to hide too, though, was like, hey, a couple years sober, whatever, but I have all these awards and acclimates. But what people don't know is, which is, I think is the biggest part, is the stuff in between that you're sharing today. Because people need to look at somebody like you and understand that it isn't just a gift. It's something that we've worked hard on. It's something that we've struggled with. And I love the fact that, even your personal life, like your relationships with family. Do you want to talk about how some of that, what's that like now?
It's very condensed. They say that as you grow up, you start losing people, not necessarily to death, but, you start trimming your circle because of your inner peace. And so to this day, my inner circle of people is very small. It's less than 10 people. I know many, many people, but to communicate on a daily by daily day or schedule is definitely less than 10. My family, my aunt, I owe her, between her and my cousin, I owe her, both of them, a very great deal of gratitude. I'm indebted to them, for as long as I'm alive. We are extremely close today. I've rebuilt relationships with my dad. I pushed him away for a long time. My younger sister, who I grew up with, I pushed her away, and my brother-in-law and my nephew, her son, and I started rebuilding those relationships with them because they're important to me. I don't have a relationship with my mother still to this day because it's just not something that will bring me peace, and I've accepted that, and that's one of the most important things to me today is to protect that sanctity of peace.
Yeah. And I think understanding that these relationships, and they're always going to change. Like I've had so many relationships that I thought were going to be friends forever, and you realize like, hey, that's not something I need in my life. Or somebody gets close and you're like, well, I didn't realize how important this person was going to be. And I think, you're sharing this, like you said, publicly for the first time now, which is a huge decision. So what made you say, hey, listen, now's the time?
Because I've gotten to a place, although I still have triggers and, it's still sometimes difficult to talk about, I've come to a place where I want to not necessarily push this behind me because it'll always be with me. But I've gotten to a place where I feel like I've accomplished enough to be able to show people that even at your worst, like there can be greener grass on the other side. You just have to be able to work at it. And I don't think that I would be here today if, I didn't push through and work day in, day out on it. And the other reason is because in the past couple of years, I've lost some former students, past veteran buddies, and people even in my own family to very traumatic situations, not all of them suicide. And I just thought that, like, if someone that I've had influence over, or someone that I've worked with, or people that don't even know me and, know John Henry, likes to bring in people to help others, support them, and bring resources, why not project this to a larger audience? So, like, if they are struggling, they can get the help and the resources that they need, and know that the resources do work. It just takes time.
Because we both listened to this UT commencement speech by this same guy. We just talked about it today, but he says,
McRaven.
What's his name?
Admiral McRaven.
McRaven, yeah, Admiral McRaven. The guy's amazing, but he says, if you can help 10 people, and they help 10 people over 100 years, that's 800 million. Like that's 3 times almost what the population of the United States is, over double anyway. Yeah. And I guarantee this one episode helps 10 people. It will.
I hope so.
It will. I guarantee it. Towards the end here, I want to finish with, we do call this the good hustle. I would love for you, because I know this is important to you, to look back at Kris. What would you say to 2017 Kris today?
It's not as detrimental. That moment, it's not as detrimental as you think it is, and there is help out there. We need, it's about a lifting hand and not a put down.
Could you tell him that he's loved?
He's loved. He's cared for. People think he's funny sometimes.
He is. He is.
There's not gonna, it's not gonna be perfect, but it's going to be 100 times better than the situation that I was in.
Yep. I think your story is amazing. I think your growth is beautiful. I think what your message carries can help so many people, and it's not just veterans. It's anybody with mental illness, even addiction. Hey everybody, I wanted to talk to you about A+ Mortgage Solutions. They're one of our sponsors, Jeremy and Angie McMichael, not a couple, but they're phenomenal. They are great lenders. They have worked with hundreds of buyers on my team over the last couple of years. If you need help with a mortgage, whether it's a HELOC, a mortgage, anything, any questions you have, refinancing, check the link below. Their information is there. Now back to the episode.
If you're struggling with thoughts of suicide, depression, or you feel like you can't carry it alone, call or text 988. That's the Suicide and Crisis Hotline. If you're a veteran and you call 988, press 1, and it'll get you to the VA crisis line. Crisis works. They talk to you. They get you help, the resources and support that you need.
You're not alone. Asking for help is not a weakness. It's a strength. Thank you so much.